Now there's a lot of videos that show you the ins and out of the Fernweh, and that's not what I want to do in this video. What I want to do is get creative with the pedal. And the way that I'm going to do this is with the effects loop. So anything you put in here is going to affect the decayed note of the delay. So that means if you put a fuzz in here, you're going to get a fuzzed out delay sound. You could put reverb on top of it. You could put more delay. So really, it's just a matter of your imagination and also experimenting. Maybe some pedals don't sound so good on the decayed note, but what if you want to add tremolo or chorus or phasing or auto-wah? So there's a bunch of different options that you can look at. And that's what I intend to do. And the other thing that's really cool is that if you use a full board with different effects, you can send all the pedals into the effects loop. So that way, when you turn on the pedal, you have maybe reverb stacked with delay and phaser and, you know, something like a big muff. So really, it's whatever you come up with can be super interesting going through this. And on top of that, when you send this delay through the front of a dirty amp, it accentuates whatever effect you put through the effects loop. So the amp I'm going to be using today is the Invaders Amplification Blue Grass 550. It's similar in its approach to something like a Fender Bassman. So the first example I'm going to show you, the more traditional approach to using this delay, is going to be through a clean amp. But after that, I'm just going to crank up some of the distortion of this amp, and I'm going to use pedals directly into here. So yeah, I'm going to send this delay through a dirty amp because it was conceived to work this way, which is pretty different in approach. So let's get to some of the specification, and then we're going to get creative. Remember to use the chapters below. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And also, if you like this kind of nerdy content, consider subscribing. I come out with videos every week. This year is going to be a whole lot of fun. The typical convention when it comes to delay, or if you want the more common practice, would be something like this, where you have your signal coming through here, going through your dirt boxes and all this stuff, and the delay comes later in the chain. Now, if you put that delay at the forefront and then you put all the dirty effects, what you're doing essentially is clipping your delay. So your clean delay goes through all the other effects, and sometimes that can be a really cool sound, and other times it doesn't sound that great because the delay doesn't really react the way you would want it to. Sometimes you have to use the mix knob if there is one with your pedal, but even if there's a mix knob, sometimes the delay sounds like crap. It really depends on the circuit. With Jupiter Effects, they don't have a very conventional approach to pedals, so these here, as Chris told me, have really high resolution, which I take it to mean that they have really high headroom. They're made to function with really high headroom amplifiers or pedals. So that means that you can send this guy in the front of a dirty amp, and you might not think that that sounds good because maybe you tried it and it sounded like dog doo-doo, but this one here actually sounds really good. So let's go have a listen. So now we're going to get creative with the effects loop. I'm going to use this compressor. And if you don't know what a compressor is, it's super simple to understand. You have either the threshold or the compression. In this case, it's written only compression and sustain. Think of your volume as being a string going up, and you put a ceiling on top. That is the threshold or the compression. Now, the heavier you compress, that means the more you push down. So the stream of volume that's coming in, the more you compress it, the less amplitude you have. That's why there's a volume here to make up for the volume that is lost. But another thing that happens is that the really quiet notes, they get pushed up with the loud ones that are being stopped from going over this threshold, hence the compression. Why would you want to do that? Well, the concept is this. This delay, or any delay for that matter, they usually don't sustain the repeated notes at the same volume. The volume starts to decay. It starts to go down. So what we want to do here is put the compressor in here and see if we can sustain those delayed notes at a louder volume for a longer period of time. And we're going to see what that does. I've never tried it, but what the hell? Let's give it a shot. Some delays have modulation on the repeats. Modulation is basically just a big fancy word for things like chorus or phaser, flanger, etc. So what I'm going to do here is send the Wampler Terraform. I'm going to use a phaser from this guy, put it in the effects loop, and see what kind of really cool sounds I can get out of it. Now we're going to take all the different concepts that I've applied through the different demos, put them all together, and see what combining different pedals together through the effects loop is going to sound like. So I don't know what I'm going to put together, so I'm going to go mess around with a bunch of pedals. So maybe I'm going to put phaser through the fuzz, maybe I'm going to have the fuzz later. Who knows? I'm going to throw out the conventions and just experiment and come up with something cool. So let's go have a listen.
One eternity later.
Now, one of the really cool things that I've been able to pull off with this pedal is that kind of like spacey, like 1970s Boston type of weird effect that Tom Scholz uses. So I want to use the Fernweh. I want to use this fuzz here from JHS, which is the Berkeley. Apparently guys like Eric Johnson also used the same circuit. So not this very pedal, but the one that it's based on. I think it's a Seamoon something rather fuzz. And Tom Scholz apparently used it, and I can definitely hear the fuzz on certain songs. And Chris from Jupiter Effects was very kind to send me one of his super distortions. Apparently he's got like I don't know, a rack full of them. So he sent this one over so I can do this video. So with the right pickup, the right fuzz, a delay that can actually do the Tom Scholz, like spaced out wacky thing, I think I have some of the most crucial elements to try and replicate the Tom Scholz sound. So I'm going to be using the Kemper behind me, where I have some people that modeled some of the gear that Tom Scholz used to sell from his company called Rockmen. And I also have a pedal here that gets me in the ballpark. So I'm going to show you how I use analog pedals and amplifiers that have nothing to do with Tom Scholz, and how it gets me close to that original, like, first album guitar sound. So right pickup, very, very similar type of fuzz, and a delay that can do the space thing. So yeah, if you're interested in that, come and check it out. The video should be right here on screen for you. And if it's not, well, there's something else in the meantime that you can watch. Cheers.